You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Lynn Neillie.
and we're going to get right into it. Lynn, what is your hot take?
Hot take. Everybody can be a great speaker, even if you're shy, even if you think you aren't the fastest person, even if you may have had some challenges. And here's where I'm going to say that you can be a great speaker. You don't have to speak all the time. Some of it is you have to ask the best questions. And then you need to use silence to hear the other person. That's going to make a great speaker.
I think that this is such an important conversation, and we are meeting each other for the first time, right? So you don't know my backstory or any of the things that came into this, but longtime listeners will know I actually started podcasting in the first place because I had like an existential fear of speaking into the void. And I knew that business is done this way these days. And to build a thriving, successful business, I needed to be able to speak into a camera and not be super nervous about it. So I started the podcast to force myself to practice because you have conversations with people on a show. They expect you to post that episode, and so it was almost like creating accountability for myself
So great.
and practicing in the same space. Then I discovered I actually really love podcasting, and now 2 years and more than 200 episodes later, I this is one of my favorite things that I do.
Superstar. I'm going to call you, that's the Navy SEAL approach, right? There's challenge, there's pressure, there's fear. And what do? You go towards it. I just was in a workshop the last 2 days with 4 executive sales leaders. Every one of them is now being pushed to do more and more presentation training. And they're like, Lynn, how do we get better? And I said, you gotta practice. It's just like me going to my CrossFit gym. I can have all the aspirations in the world to do a pull up, but if I don't go in and do the reps and do the maybe lower level work of ring rows and then banded pull ups and then like 1, 2, 3 pull ups at a time, I'm never going to be able to get it. So, Alyssa, shout out to you for going towards the thing that you're like, well, I don't know if I really want to speak. And here I am 2 years later, right? Comfortable and in front of camera and in front of people with your own voice and then helping others to get their voice out. Well done.
I think too, you really have to know yourself, right? So for me, I was joking with someone recently that I've got a graveyard of planners in my drawer because I always buy one with the best intentions. Like I'm gonna be so organized. I'm gonna get all my stuff done. And then, eventually after 3 weeks of being obsessed with it, I forget it exists entirely. And I discovered about myself that I need someone to depend on me in order to actually do the thing.
Yeah.
And so creating an interview style podcast where someone comes on the show and depends on me to actually post it forced me into that accountability loop of actually getting content out there and putting it out there and building that personal brand. So if you are someone who can just post into the ether on LinkedIn or wherever, you might be more successful just going ahead and doing that. But sometimes we have to know ourselves well enough to know, how do we actually lock in on this thing we need to practice.
You bet. Well, and I think what you just said, which is I need that accountability. I think it goes along with what my hot take is, which is, so if you're speaking, what do you do to engage the other person? And so much of the time we're thinking it's just me projecting, me just giving the words out. But the trouble with that, and you'll love this statistic, Alyssa, we listen at 125 to 250 words per minute, but we think at 1,000 to 3,000 words per minute.
Mm.
So my brain is going, 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 going. I'm already thinking about what you're going to say and where you're going to finish up and then what I'm going to say in response. And I, as the speaker, am obligated to engage you. And what that means typically for me, even for a large room speaker, speaking to 500 people, is what questions are you going to sprinkle within your presentation to have us stop, think, have your listeners talk, even if what they're doing is turning to the person next to them in order to have their engagement. Your words from the front of the room or from the front of the workshop or from the front of the conference room are going to be memorable then because they have a place to stick. all you're doing is continuing with a stream of words and there's no stop, there's no silence, there's no engagement of a question, they're going to miss most likely two thirds of what you're saying.
I I feel so much resonance with everything that you're saying because I
Yeah.
was that like I again, knowing yourself. So in college,
Yeah.
I was that kid that everybody like hated because I didn't have to study for things and then I would do just fine on the test. Like my roommate and I took the same courses and she would study for like 7 to 8 hours and I would study not at all and we'd get the same grade and she's like, "I hate being in the same classes as you." But then I realized that I started to get into some of these more, like, lecture-based classes where I really started to struggle, and all of a sudden I'm like, "What is happening here?" Like, I have to study all of a sudden, I don't know what's going on. I realized that the classes in which I was allowed to raise my hand, answer questions, and engage, I did really well in. I retained that information. I connected
Thank
those dots. The classes where I was just sitting there and there was a guy at the front of the room who just droned on from his notes in his 20-year-old PowerPoint, I did horrible at those classes,
Yeah.
and until I made that connection and I realized, like, "Oh, I have to talk in order to be connecting this information," I started, like, reciting my lecture notes to myself in the mirror because that's how I started to retain it.
You're a rock star. So, case in point, there was about a 5-year period where I had the honor of being an adjunct professor at Texas State University in San Marcos. I'm a corporate trainer, executive coach, speaker on communication, selling, negotiations, presentation. And I was honored to be asked to come in as an adjunct professor in the communication department. And the thought of me, Alyssa, as a lecturer is just horrifying, frightening. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know a lot of stuff that I would just continually talk at people on. So my classes for graduate students and for the seniors were always project based, always engagement. I'd have different speakers come in, different experts come in, and then I'd give the assignment to these communication majors. All right, what nonprofit are you going to put news releases together? What nonprofit are you going to do your marketing strategy? Talk to us about
Yeah.
how you're going to do that. There's no more hope that I would ever lecture at them. But which professor got the highest marks for my classes? It's because I had people doing the thing versus talking at them about the thing. And to your point, Alyssa, I don't think that a lecturer is effective. I think an engager who has subject matter expertise is the one who's going to help other people to get better. And that's what
That
our mission in his life, isn't it? To help other people get better?
for hopefully for most of us, the kinds of people that I wanna be friends with, absolutely. I mean, you just said, like, the magic word of "get practical," right? I would love to get your thoughts on especially in that sales process, right? Like, we go into those conversations with an agenda.
You bet.
We are here to sell you something. We have some talking points that we need to get through.
Yes.
And I was an accidental seller. I never really intended to do so, but anytime you start a business, all of a sudden you have to learn how to sell this business. And I really struggled when I had any kind of, like, prepared talking points, right? Because then I would be sitting there thinking to myself, "Okay, have I checked this box? Have I checked that box?" And then I'm not really listening.
Right.
And the when I stopped coming in so prepared and started coming in just being like, "We're just gonna see what happens, like, let's roll the dice and see what happens." That's when I really started to find my footing. Now, I recognize, though, that not everybody can do that because it does take, 1, as you mentioned, a depth of expertise,
Mhm.
and 2, a willingness to maybe not have the right answer in the right moment and say things like, "I don't know, I'll come back to you on that,"
You bet.
right? And so those are 2 things that I just did naturally. But for those of us who have to sell, when we have talking points that we have to get to, how do we balance a natural human conversation that is part listening and part talking and all engaging, and those talking points that we have to get through because it's our job?
It's so true. So great. And again, I do this every single day. And it's why my job is so fun, is because selling and communicating is an art form. There are some scientific principle, there are some tried and true things you have to do, but so much of it is the magic of the human beings involved and the person who facilitates the conversation who is the seller, has the opportunity to sprinkle the magic. So, a couple of things that I think of. One is give yourself permission as a seller to do what I call the Texas two-step. The first step is go in and ask your questions. Don't put the pressure on you or on them to do more than say, hey, Alyssa, I am here obviously to sell you XYZ. And before I could ever do that, I just want us to sit and chat. I want to hear about your needs, about your pain, about what you've tried before, what's worked, what hasn't. I'd love for you to give me 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just for us to have a conversation where you're talking and I'm listening and taking notes. And then, depending on what you've told me, then we'll make a decision together for the second step of the Texas two-step, which is I'd love the honor to come back and present to you, based on what you've told me, a collaboration plan of what we could do going forward. I think too many times sellers feel like I got to get it all done in the first call. And sometimes there really are those transactional sellers that need to do that. And I think sometimes we put ourselves in that false place that that's what we have to do instead of stop, slow down, connect. Here's two of my favorite question categories. Big picture objectives. What are you trying to accomplish? Now, Alyssa, make it personal. What's the impact to you as a human? And if I can gain the credibility and the trust to ask you, big picture objective, now make it about you as a person. Think how much ground and territory I've covered as a seller. I can fill in the blanks on my product, but I have to know you business wise. And really, if I'm going to develop a relationship with you for the long term, I have to know what's driving Alyssa.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's a lot of psychology rooted in what you're talking about, which was my original passion, the thing that I wanted to do, and then discovered I had no interest in being a therapist because that's not my personality. So thank goodness I had tacked on a marketing degree on top of that, and because
Brilliant.
they're the same thing. Psychology and marketing, they are two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of psychology in what you're talking about, right? Because you're creating that relationship. You're not asking for anything. You're not asking them to sit through any kind of demo. It is a two-way exchange. But I will challenge everybody listening
Yeah.
that that second step of that Texas two-step actually has to be personalized. Because I've had people do this to me before where it's like, let's do a discovery call and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then I agree to that second conversation. And then you're just giving me a generic demo, or you bring in some
Brilliant.
outside demoer
Yeah.
to come do a demo. And I know that you really didn't take anything from that conversation. And it almost,
Oh,
even if I liked your solution, even if I liked you the first conversation, coming to me with a quote personalized demo that isn't personalized tells me you really didn't care about that first conversation. It was all transactional. So we might as well have done it all in one anyway.
absolutely. So what you just talked about is breaking trust, right? And that magical human, call him a seller, an influencer, a motivator, that connector. If I have gained your trust to have a conversation and you're with me and just disclosing with me, I absolutely need to have the smarts to customize and tailor my solution with your words, your pain, your need. If I am only presenting you a generic product, a generic service, shame on me. I'd have done better to just set up an Amazon type website and have you order that way. Because, oh my goodness, if you're going to sell and you're going to sell for the long term and you're going to sell and have referrals, you have to develop the relationship, which means I care about Alyssa. I care about Alyssa's business, and I'm going to weave my product is secondary. How it's solving Alyssa's company's problem or challenge is primary. That's why, as a speaker, I have to concentrate on what your words are. And I need to take notes, not that I'm writing every single thing that you said, but your highlighted words. Alyssa, if I don't sprinkle your words in my solution, how are you going to hear it? You won't hear it. You'll just hear my words. That doesn't mean anything to you. I need your words to tell your story and our collaborated solution. Now, people could hear that and say, well, that's going to take forever. So here's some selling wisdom. slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
And many times in our world, we're just thinking, oh, we got to get it done now. And I will tell you, here's a benefit of being older and being in the workforce for a long time and working with a lot of people and a lot of challenges. As much as I am still in a hurry and anxious to get everything done, there really is that philosophy that's true. Slow down to speed up. And the slow down for you as a seller or communicator could be pump the brakes, listen, silence, question, listen, give an acknowledgement, give some kind of relating statement, and then proceed. And it can feel like, oh, that's so counterintuitive. Like, why would the speaker stop and ask that question or have silence to get the other person on board and connected?
If you watch any comedian, for example, they do silence very well.
Oof.
So you can watch, and like, this is just apparently the thing that I do is nerd out about like this kind of stuff. But if you watch
Yep.
any comedian, right, listen
Yeah.
to the jokes and laugh,
Yeah.
but they leave spots where they expect the audience to laugh and
Yep.
engage and clap, right? Like,
So
if
true.
you are in a situation where you are just speaking and you're not creating space for people to give you that feedback, one, you don't know if it's landing. And two, people want to feel a part of something.
You bet.
Nobody we talk to. If I just wanted to hear a comedian talk at me, I can go to YouTube. I don't have to pay $500 for your time, right? I don't need to be here. I don't need to be in person. So if you're not going to treat this like a real live event, why would you even make me get on a meeting? Why wouldn't you just send me a YouTube video that I can watch at my own convenience whenever I want to?
Absolutely.
But there is one thing that I one little hack maybe
Yeah.
is like the right questions can
Mhm.
help you kind of shortcut.
You bet.
So one of the cheats that I like to do is if I'm gonna meet with someone and I don't know them, right? And I'm meeting with them for the first time, I will actually go to their LinkedIn page and I will scroll to the bottom. And there used to be this thing where we would like write reviews and like
Hey,
recommendations for each other.
yes. Yeah.
I won't read the recommendations that they've received. I will read the ones that they've written because what we say about other people,
Absolutely.
how we recommend other people
Yeah.
is a great indicator of how we feel and what we value.
Mhm.
And so when people say things like, "Oh, I need to recommend Lynn because she's a great listener and she's a great communicator, and she always told me like I always knew where we stood. I always knew where we were on the timeline." Okay, now I know
Mhm.
Alyssa values those things because she recommended it and recognized it in someone else. And so sometimes we're very telling with how we recommend other people
That's a great hack.
for the things we value.
Yeah. Alyssa, thank you for that. That is awesome. I've actually never heard it, and it makes total sense. I love that. What a great sleuthing exercise, too, to go find those wrecks.
But you
No,
can ask a similar question. Like you can say something like, "So tell me, vendor agnostic, doesn't have to be a solution like mine, doesn't even have to be a problem that I solve.
yeah.
When you work with great vendors, what makes a vendor great to you? Like what makes them the best? What makes them worth recommending?"
And
Right? Or tell me about the best vendor you've ever worked with.
yeah, I will say someone that I'm comfortable with, someone that I don't have to feel like I have all the solutions and all the answer and I'm all together and I'm not going to be taken advantage of for my vulnerability.
Yeah.
The other part is when something goes wrong, because something will go wrong, how do they come back from it? And one of my early lessons from one of my early mentors was there's going to be a mistake. Somebody's going to make a mistake. And it's always how people come back from the mistake. People or companies come back from the mistake. And that has stayed with me forever. That, listen, we're all human, we're all broken, we're all trying the darn best that we can. And when things go awry, how does the person come back? Are they defensive? Are they trying to make excuses? I hate excuses. Excuses just mean nothing. What are you actually going to do about it? I'm not blaming. I'm just saying we need to move on and get this thing resolved.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, I just had a situation with a client where I delivered a research report to them, and there was a very minor mistake in there, but it was enough for them to be like, "Oh, this looks weird." And then I was like, "I have no idea where that number even came from. Let me go do some digging."
Yeah.
So I got off the call. I went back and I dug. I found the mistake. I emailed immediately and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I found the mistake.
Yeah.
One, I sincerely apologize. 2, I'm going to correct it right away.
Yeah.
3, I am positive it didn't impact the rest of your report. However, 4, I am going to go do a comb through and ensure that it did not. And so 1, you take accountability
Right.
for what you did.
Absolutely.
2, you offer a quick, like, this is what I'm going to do about it.
That,
And then 3, you actually do it. And that's the
that,
part that, like, people won't even be held accountable, let alone fix it.
absolutely. And did you hear that? What you did, you didn't give any excuse. You didn't deny it. You didn't, it's like, I'm going to just dig into it. Okay. Thank you for telling me. And here we go. This is how
Yeah,
it got.
and on the call when they asked me about it, I didn't pretend like they were stupid or dumb for thinking that that was wrong, like, "No, my report's infallible." I immediately went, "You know what? I don't know, but I will find out." Like, you don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Isn't that great? I love to coach, especially early in their careers, salespeople. It's okay to say, I don't know. I will go find out so I can make sure to get you the most accurate and best information. What a great way to build credibility and trust. And then, of course, to learn. There's so many other options, right? If you don't have the stickiness, the credibility, the trustworthiness that you're going to do something about the situation, they're- they'll go find another banker. You'll go find somebody else. And you know what? They'll care. They'll
Yeah.
absolutely care about you.
Considering all of the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else do we need to pay attention
All
to?
right. So, number one, if you have not read Patrick Lencioni's books,
Love
listen
Patrick
to his
Lencioni, so good.
podcast. He's just one of my heroes. I love him, one, because he's just so practical. He's so smart. I love the ideal team player. And I use the 5 dysfunctions of a team. I also love that his material is just open source. Like you can go on and get that material. That abundance mentality is fantastic. And I think for anybody, if you haven't heard him for a while, or if you've never heard him, go get Patrick Lencioni. The second recommend, and I've got 3, so hang on. Second one is my beloved husband and business partner and fellow dog parent, Dr. Andy Neillie. And Dr. Andy Neillie is not only a learned leadership speaker, he's also an author of an adorable book called The Golden Principles, Life and Leadership Lessons of a Rescue Dog. We've rescued 15 golden retrievers in our long marriage. And my smart husband has figured out, oh, there's some leadership principles as we rescue these, what we think are beautiful dogs. And they are, but just like all of us beings, they have issues. And so, how do we lead them? The third one is, and I want to put this pitch in because all of us need some faith in our life. And I go to one of the coolest churches in the world, and it's called Red Rocks, Austin. And there are 3 fabulous pastors who speak so well. And I would love to invite people onto their podcast, onto the Instagram of Red Rocks, Austin. It's practical information, cultural information, and it's solid information.
And if someone is loving this conversation as much as I am, and they wanna learn more and they wanna follow you online, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on LinkedIn at Lynn S. Neillie. And you write me a note and I will write you back and we will have a great conversation, just like I've had the privilege of having with Alyssa today.
And if you are looking for me, you can find me also on LinkedIn. You search Alyssa Nolte, and if you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under Alyssa Likes to Talk. Lynn, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I absolutely loved it. I feel so energized. I feel so engaged having connected with you. I know our audience feels exactly the same. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Absolutely my privilege and pleasure. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.